As Head of Operations at Cranfield Trust, I led the launch of our mentoring programme in 2019 with an insightful training course given by David Clutterbuck. It was the beginning of a valuable journey for the Trust. Since those early pre-pandemic days, we have supported more than 450 charity leaders with volunteer mentors. 99% of our mentee charity leaders would recommend the Cranfield Trust Mentor Programme to their peers. I was delighted to welcome Emilia to take the helm, and now she oversees Cranfield Trust's mentoring programme. Professor David Clutterbuck is a leading researcher on mentoring. David co-founded the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, the primary professional organisation in the field within Europe, and is now its special ambassador, promoting good practice in mentoring and coaching internationally. David also founded the International Standards for Mentoring and Coaching programme and was voted Coaching at Work magazine's first Mentor of the Year. He is visiting professor at 3 universities. David, we're delighted to welcome you back to Trust. Thank you for the opportunity to build on our own learning 4 years into our charity mentor programme. With such a full schedule and heavy workload, we are especially grateful for your time. Thank you for accepting our invitation to this interview.
Our mentoring program is based on building leadership skills and confidence. Our mentors are or have been successful and confident leaders, mostly, but not exclusively, from the commercial sector. How could they best approach being a mentor to a charity leader?
Well, I think one of the first and most obvious things is to understand what it is that they bring. And we've been doing quite a lot of research into both coaching and mentoring, and we've been looking at the most mature coaches. And the fascinating thing is, it's not about what they do, it's about who they are. It's about being there. And so valuing your experience is great. That helps you, but it helps you craft the right questions. The questions are going to really help somebody think. And it's not about dumping that experience on somebody else. So that's just really listening and evaluating. When is it the right time to offer somebody some information that's going to be helpful with the quality of their thinking? And we always come back to that. Leadership is a process of thinking and conversations. So working out how things, or what are the options that we have, understanding the context, and then making decisions about how best to operate within that context. We've done a lot of work around the nature of great leadership, and it's the qualities of great leaders and great mentors are pretty much the same. So we can identify four C's. The first one is compassion, caring about other people. When we ask people to talk about the most effective mentors and the most effective leaders, that's one of the things that comes up right at the top. Then the second thing is curiosity. Now, as somebody who's worked in, I don't know, in the health service or in banking or whatever, in order to be able to really build that rapport and understanding with somebody from the charitable sector, we have to be curious. How is life different? What are the issues that they face? And particularly with a smaller charity that doesn't have all the resources that a large business would have. So curiosity is fundamental. Then we've got courage. Courage to recognize you don't know everything. Courage to ask those really difficult questions, both of the mentee and of yourself. And the last one, the last of the 4 C's, is connectedness. I don't know if you've heard of the South African concept of Ubuntu, but it means I am because we are. And the charitable sector doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in a social environment, in a business environment. And so the connectedness, both in terms of 2 human beings who've got very similar experiences as leaders, but also connectedness of between the various sectors and how they support each other. That's an important part of that awareness, if you like. So those 4 C's, compassion, curiosity, courage, and connectedness. That's the secret.
How important is it to have a mentor from the same sector as yourself?
It's actually very much a balancing act. But the reality is, somebody is too close to your world, they won't have the depth of perspective to ask some of those really difficult questions or to give you those different contexts. So what we find is that having a mentor who comes from a different background, who nonetheless understands what it is to be a leader, that's the starting point. And in many ways, the comparison of the leadership in the charity sector and leadership in other sectors, that's where some of the biggest learning comes from. What this mentor from outside the sector then is able to do is basically enable you to think about, how do I go to people inside the sector and then use them in an appropriate way for the learning that I need that's sector specific. So it's that balance of the external view that enables you to really think out really widely, and that narrow perspective. If you want the narrow perspective, it doesn't even have to be a mentor. It could be somebody. We talk about fast knowledge transfer, somebody who's an expert in that field. It could be a specialist coach. Doesn't really matter. But the key to using your mentor really well is to have somebody whose different perspective really stimulates your thinking. The closer to you their thinking is, the less effective that's going to be.
Also clarify to our charity clients and volunteer mentors the difference between mentoring and coaching. Is it fair to consider mentoring as coaching plus?
Well, that's one of the definitions that's been given, and the reason for that, if we take it back to what are we trying to do, both as coaches and as mentors, we're trying to help somebody understand both their internal world and their external world. So, for your internal world, what are your fears, your hopes and aspirations for yourself and for your charity? What are the limitations that you perceive within yourself? And then the external world, what are the possibilities, the connections that you can make with other forms of knowledge and the potential that's out there to develop your charity and in both financially and in terms of its impact on beneficiaries. So the role of a coach and of a mentor is to help you deepen your understanding of the internal context and your understanding of that external context, putting the two together, which enables you to get greater clarity, and therefore to be able to make much better decisions. Now, the essence of coaching, which is a very recent development in historical time, it's only 170 years old, even as a word. So it is very much about that internal focus, helping somebody to work on their strengths and weaknesses, deal with, come up with strategies for acquiring an extra skill or whatever. The essence of mentoring is much broader. It's about not achieving things. It's about becoming. And so the mentor has all this extra potentially useful knowledge, and that means they can give context. And when we talk about context is not the same as advice. Context is information that helps you think things through. Advice is doing the thinking for you. So the mentor comes with this reservoir of useful knowledge, which they can provide as it's needed. And for mentors are most effective when they're really selective about the context that they provide. Coaches can't provide that context because they've never experienced, or they haven't got relevant experience, or they have less relevant experience. So that's the key difference. It's if you're a mentor, you can craft questions that come from an inside knowledge of what it's like to lead in an organization. You can empathize with the loneliness of being a leader. And so that's one of the reasons why people very often think, well, maybe as a mentee, maybe I want somebody who comes from my own background. But actually, that's not really the key. It's what is the context that they can help you to really understand. It's that leadership context that's most important.
Federation of Small Businesses research has shown that 70% of small businesses that receive mentoring survive for 5 years or more, which is double the rate compared with non-mentored entrepreneurs. From your experience, what value, impact could charity leaders expect after being mentored?
I think the first thing that comes out of all this is actually being able to work out what's important to focus on. You know, if you're in the forest, it's hard to see it. And having somebody who can just take you out and help you look back into the role that you have, it's so much more powerful. And somebody who can help you to build around you a team of people who can share the leadership burden. We did some lovely research 2 or 3 years ago, trying to find out what exactly do leaders do. We found there are 4 million books and articles plus on the traits of leaders and the characteristics. There's a handful of pieces of research on what leaders actually do. We found many examples of leadership being distributed in all sorts of ways. So leadership is identifying things that need attention. Number one. Number two is actually working out ways to address those issues. And number three is making sure the solutions get implemented. That's the core of leadership. Most of this can be distributed within teams and within organizations. And we only found 2 things that we've been unable to find examples of not being partially or wholly distributed amongst a team. One of those is those 2 things is getting getting permission from above. So in a charity's context, that would be the board of trustees, for example. So the liaison with it, somebody's got to have that responsibility. And the second thing was protecting the team from interference from outside that might stop it doing its work. Everything else can be delegated in part or whole. So the nature of leadership, I think, is something where the mentor can help it in so many ways, thinking about what do I do, how do I do it, what are the responsibilities that I need to keep as a leader, what can I delegate to other people. I had brought to me a lovely case of a charity leader in America, and this was somebody who was working with her and trying to help her cope. This woman was on the edge of burnout. She had a senior team, all of them stretched as she saw it, with lots of responsibilities. So what she did was basically she just took more and more on her own shoulders, and she was sinking under the burden of all this. And the simple solution that mentor was able to provide here: have you asked your top team for help? Well, I don't want to burden them. But what would happen if you asked them to help you, not necessarily taking the burden, but help you with the thinking? And immediately she asked, the top team came up with all sorts of, well, why don't we just stop doing X or Y? And basically, once she'd shared the problem, she was able to, a lot of the stress went away. Didn't take away from the volume of work that needed to be done, but together they found solutions. And I think, just that's one of the most powerful examples of me. The mentor can just help you step back, see the system around you, and engage with the system in a different way.
David, if you were to describe mentoring in one sentence, what would you say?
Mentoring is using your wisdom to help somebody else develop their own wisdom.
Thank you. And who can benefit most from mentoring?
Everybody. Mentoring is something that can be of value to you from a very small age, right the way up into retirement. We've even had examples of mentoring into death. And you know, and it's something that it's a way of being with other people, supporting other people. It's being human. We have this wonderful program we've been working on for, and I'm pretty much ready to launch now, aimed at getting 5 million school-age mentors around the globe. That's, you know, it's ambitious, but it's highly possible. And one of the chapters in the materials for the kids is how to mentor your parents.
Thank you very much, David. And I've taken, well, from there, quite a lot of C's actually, because you talk of compassion, curiosity, courage, connectiveness, clarity, and context. So there was 6 C's there I found, which were extremely valuable, above your 4. So as always, exceeding expectations, David. Thank you for being incredibly insightful. This interview will serve as a brilliant refresher for all Cranfield Trust volunteer mentors, as well as enriching the resources we already share on our Cranfield Trust Volunteers Hub. So thank you very much, David, and thank you also to all our volunteer mentors who provide daily value to charity clients. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you.